NAGAP and also work at the University of New Haven in graduate enrollment. And I'm joined today with Linda Horisk. I'll have you hear a bit about her. Just 1 second.
Hi, my name is Linda Horisk. I'm the Assistant Dean for Admissions at Fordham Grad School of Education. I'm currently the Chair of NAGAP's Education Committee, and I am the President of one of NAGAP's chapters, the Jesuit Grad Admissions Group.
Great. And we want to thank you all so much for joining us for today's webinar on how to develop a proposal for our upcoming annual conference. And we hope that you have some interest in a wide variety of topics. We've really tried to expand what NAGAP is doing in the realm of graduate enrollment management beyond just marketing and admissions, which a lot of us work in. And there's a lot of benefit to all of us learning the various things happening in the other facets of GEM, but also bringing in some of the professionals within our own schools to speak on some of those issues. And hopefully we can really develop a really robust conference around all of those topics. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Just a couple of quick logistical things. One, on the right-hand side of your screen in that go-to webinar box, you'll see there's a questions box there. So not the one labeled chat, but the one labeled questions. You can enter any questions that you have throughout the session. We'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have during the session. Also, we are recording this, just so you know. So if you have any, if you want to rewatch this later on, or if you know of colleagues that need to see that, you'll be able to see it up on our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/NAGAP video, so you will be able to see all of that as we go. So here we go. We want to get into some logistical things first. A little bit about, you've met us now. I'll also talk to you a little bit more about important information regarding the conference. Also talk about the format and requirements of a proposal, especially for those of you who haven't done a proposal in the past. Talk about the various session formats that we offer. Also building a topic from how you can just come up with an idea versus how you can actually propose it. And so we know there's a lot of questions on that. How to optimize your topic and approach for your audience. You know, many of us have gone to sessions in the past at various conferences where we go, where's the value in this? Or am I getting a takeaway from here? So we want to talk about how you can really adapt your proposal on your sessions to get some really valuable takeaways for your audience. Ultimately, talk about the takeaways from what this presentation can bring to you as well, and some final thoughts, and of course answer any questions that you have. We will be monitoring the questions box throughout the session, so if there are questions that we can answer during the session, we're happy to do that. So feel free to ask away as we go, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So hopefully by now you know that our conference will be April 8th to the 11th. It's a little earlier this year, and that has to do with contracting and things. So just so you're aware that behind the scenes there's a lot of work that's done through particularly our AMP, our management company that helps run NAGAP behind the scenes. They do a lot of work to ensure that we're getting the best deals that we can, that we're passing along to our members. So the benefit to you is that you're not paying these extraordinary hotel costs and registration fees to go to these conferences. We're really trying to keep our hotel costs in particular at a minimum. So we usually have to work around, sometimes we set up some long-term contracts, and in this case with New Orleans, we're actually going to be there again in 2018. So if you like New Orleans, we're going back in a few years. So keep that on your radar. But we've really benefited from some longer-term contracts that have kept our hotel costs down, and that's deliberate so that you as members can come and make it manageable and affordable for you and your staff to join us. So we will be in New Orleans in 2015 at the Hyatt Regency. Again, it'll be the same location in 2018, so keep that on your calendars. The call for proposals, as you all probably know at this point, has been posted. It's been emailed to you as well, but it's been posted on our website. So if you go to nagap.org, you can read all about that and go through the proposal process. There's a new site this year, so Linda will talk to you a little bit more about that shortly on how to go through that process and set up. One thing to keep in mind, well, first of all, your deadline to submit the proposal is September 22nd. So we have about a month and a half from now until your proposal is due. But certainly don't wait. The sooner you can do that, take it from my own experience. If you wait till the very last minute, it's very hard to put a proposal together. So definitely think about that over the coming weeks so that you can get that in on time. Be sure that you register for the conference. All of our presenters are volunteer from our membership base, so you do have to register for the conference once that registration period opens, and you will see plenty of emails about that over the coming months, so be sure to watch for that. and you must register. So that's just a requirement for presenters. So now when you're developing a proposal, we want you to think about what the goals are of hopefully something that can align with what the conference is all about. And each year we have a theme for the conference. So we're going to talk to you more about that in depth. And let me just bounce back here. You see GEM defined, a new kind of rhythm. We spent actually a fair amount of time coming up with that theme, especially when we wanted to match our New Orleans location, so the music certainly made sense. But we're really getting into a point now where we've made GEM, we have a general understanding of what GEM is. We've had a lot of work within our research committee in defining what GEM is, and we're going to see a lot more of the results of that work over the coming year or so. But now that we've kind of come up with a definition and we're still trying to wrap our hands fully around that, we want you to help us really drive the car to get more into the GEM focus and other pieces of GEM, particularly aspects outside of marketing and recruitment, though we certainly are going to be having plenty of sessions related to those areas. But we want you to try to align as much as you can how your various topics might fit into a greater GEM model, how it fits into the GEM industry, for lack of a better term. So it's really important that we try to build on that. And over the coming years, we've set themes that build on that continually so that we as professionals are growing, but we're also expanding what our industry and our profession are doing in a greater whole. So those various life cycle pieces could be anything from perspective to obviously alumni engagement and everywhere in between. There's current student service issues, there's financing, there's all kinds of things that we're going to talk about. We have what we call domains, and this is a relatively new term, and I give Linda and some of the other folks with a lot of education background credit for bringing the word domains into our focus here, because it really envelops what we're trying to do in addressing the key areas, and domains in this case, of what we want to address within GEM and how we want to drive our educational opportunities. Because one thing that I think our members don't have a full understanding of is everything that happens behind the scenes with planning all of these things. There's days and months and hours and hours and hours of work being put into planning our conferences, planning the types of educational sessions we have, the topics. So there's a lot of, we actually have our first education summit of the new board coming up next week. So there's a lot of discussion around how we give you as members the most value out of all the professional development opportunities available through NAGAP. And the annual conference is just one facet of a much larger pie for professional development. So we really want to try to hit on the categories that are going to help you grow as a professional and help our profession grow around us. So and these are all based on a number of things that we've done with research. We've done a lot of surveys. We've heard back from you as members. So there's a lot of things that we've done to really encompass everything that our members are involved in and want to learn more about. Now we ask that you don't have to do something that somebody just tells you to do or that's just within your job. You might have some interest in something or a skill set that we don't already have. You know, Linda and I were just discussing budgeting being an important topic. So if you have a particular skill set in budgeting for your office, we could really use a topic or a session on that at the conference. There's a lot of budding professionals that want to learn more about budgeting. There's plenty of people that maybe that's not a skill set that they have, but they need to manage budgets in their office. So those types of things are things that we want you to think about and think outside the box, that there are topics that we may not have covered before, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't cover them. They are things that we want you to think outside and do differently. When we created this call for proposals, there's a lot of different things that we took into this, and I remember several days in New York a couple of years ago, we really poured through all of the surveys, all the conference evaluations, all the feedback, survey results from webinars that we had done. We looked at best practice articles, current issues, all of that, and we sat around the table for days on end and looked at every piece of that and identified the things that our members need most, the various topic areas, the ways they'd like to hear about them. We did ask about delivery models, if people like to hear them through a webinar or would rather be in a session at a conference, or if they'd rather be in a round table versus a PowerPoint presentation versus the rapid fire sessions. There's so many things that we looked into. We then took all those things and aligned them with the types of initiatives that we've developed through a strategic plan for the various initiatives and goals over the next, particularly 5 years that the board has identified. We went through a strategic planning initiative 2 years ago for a 5-year plan, And it's really interesting to see all the work that's been done to really further that mission. We also have, as I mentioned, the NAGAP Research Committee that has been working diligently to define GEM, and you probably saw some of the sessions, the extended sessions that we offered at the annual conference in San Diego about that project. And we'll be seeing the fruits of all that labor even further over the coming year. Finally, our NAGAP and our NAGAP conference and education committees come together in a wide variety of ways to implement these various things and make it so that our conferences are inclusive of all the various topics that our members want to hear about. And so two major items that are relatively new over the last several years is the Education Committee. We're up to, and Linda can tell you more, but about 12 people or so, 12 to 15 people that get together twice a year. And we really delve deep into all of this. And I mentioned the survey results and the evaluations and all that. We're planning curriculum. We're planning, there's an education planning tool. We're determining topics to help you drive the types of content that we could put out for professional development. So we're doing those on a biannual basis, or semi-annual basis, excuse me. We also did a lot of research and analysis of the various PDIs that we've done and offerings and conferences and webinars, and looked at best practices. And then our conference committee has representation on our education committee, so there's connection with the conference in particular. And they do a very extensive overview of all the various topics and proposals that are submitted in order to really make a robust conference for you. So we've revisited the various topics and categories this year to make sure that we're encompassing the GEM life cycle. So these are the 7 categories that we've come up with based on a number of things, but that education planning tool I mentioned and those previous surveys and things. And we determined that recruitment and marketing is certainly something that we've done very well over the years, but some of these other categories are where we need the most help. We need a lot of focus in these areas, financing your education, so dealing with financial aid, and it could be veterans, policies, GI Bill, that kind of stuff. Admissions, operations, and processing type issues, student services, alumni relations, how are you engaging students, alumni, how are you using them in recruitment processes, that kind of thing. Enrollment modeling, strategic planning, a lot of us are doing that, and particularly at director level type work where it's more 30,000-foot view. And then also career staff and personal development, where we've identified that there's a need. Our members want to hear about how they can grow individually, how they can grow in the profession, how they can learn more, not only about their jobs and about GEM. So, I'd love to learn more about financial aid, for example. But then there also are opportunities where we can develop you as a person, from a personal development. So we include that in there because we want you to have opportunities for sessions to talk about how to develop your leadership skills, how to be a better communicator, how to work better in teams, those types of things. So we want to offer those types of personal development. And even further, we want those director-level folks to be able to identify how they can motivate their own staff. How can they lead better? How can they provide training opportunities? How can they do their own professional development on their campuses? So these are just the general categories that we are suggesting as kind of a way to drive you down the road to figure out what kind of topics would be something that you could present on. So these are kind of a general guideline for you, but we certainly have plenty of other opportunities for you to think of other things in there. We also strongly encourage you to, as we're thinking about these GEM topics, and particularly these bottom 6, there are a lot of folks that aren't necessarily part of the NAGAP fold already that we could really encourage to be part of NAGAP and could really impart a lot of great knowledge that we may not already have. So you might have a great graduate financial aid person or an alumni and development person, or maybe a VP of enrollment that's helping with you, or an institutional research data person, or a career development person on your campus. Or like in my case, I have a great IO psychology program on our campus, so we utilize our teachers, our faculty in that program to deliver staff development workshops here on campus. So think of ways that you can connect those other folks to the fold and maybe even co-present with them or bring them to our conference and give them opportunities to provide, kind of impart their information to us. There's really a lot of great knowledge out there that we aren't necessarily tapping. And we don't often think of those people because they're not necessarily members, but we want them to become members because we're trying to envelop, truly envelop GEM going forward for NAGAP. So when you're selecting your education sessions, you're going to have 4 different options. There's the traditional presentation. You might give a PowerPoint or just discuss a particular topic, and you're the sole presenter, or you might have a co-presenter, and you're presenting kind of lecture style, and that's your presentation. So that's a typical presentation that you're all familiar with. You could also develop a panel discussion where you might have 4 or 5 people that are talking about a particular issue. We just had discussions a couple days ago about delivering webinars to your students and how to effectively deliver a webinar to prospective students or deliver webinars to current students, talking about the types of software, all that kind of stuff. So there might be 3 or 4 people that could sit on a panel and talk about how they've utilized webinar technology to connect students to their campuses. So there's a lot of different opportunities for you to get panels. We had a panel last year on online education talking about the various vendors out there, the third-party vendors to deliver online education and the pitfalls and all that kind of stuff. So that's a good option for you if you have multiple people that can speak to different viewpoints. There's also a rapid-fire session, and this is a relatively new type of presentation for you. And this would involve a group of people where you might say, I've got a really great topic. I want to talk about veterans and social media, for example. And you might say, I can only present 10 or 15 minutes on that topic. And so it's really not enough for a full presentation, but maybe grouped with a few others, we could do something really big. So consider a rapid fire session where you're maybe connecting with, and we can help you connect. So and let me underscore this. If you have an interest in presenting, but you want to co-present with someone, or you're relatively new and haven't presented before and you need some help, or if you have this type of topic where you can present 10 or 15 minutes on something very specialized, connect with Linda or me, and we'd be happy to connect you with other people that are interested in those same types of topics. And then maybe you could put together a rapid-fire session of 4 people that each have a tidbit of something they're presenting 10 to 15 minutes on, and then just really more of a group discussion following that. So that's a good option for you as well. And finally, there's the special interest forum. And that's really more of an open discussion where you might be, as the presenter, you're driving the conversation, but the majority of what the value is in that session is that people are in kind of a roundtable format where you're all sharing best practices and what you do on your campuses and discussing challenges and issues and solutions to those challenges, and then maybe sharing them back in a more group setting. So you're, in a special interest forum, you're more of a facilitator than a full presenter, let's say. So that's a very good option too, and we've learned that people get some of the greatest value out of those forums because they're sharing information. So just some general guiding principles, and I'm going to pass it over to Linda to have her talk a little bit more about specifics of the rubrics and things. But share new information, share best practices. Again, this is about takeaways, and Linda will talk to you a little bit more about that. How can your learning that you're providing in a session, and whether that be something you're facilitating or you're actually imparting to people, how can they use that how can they take that back and sit at their office and do it in a relatively reasonable amount of time? We also want to try to take a greater role in defining how ethics takes is an important piece of the work that we do every day. So to the extent that it's possible with your topic, try to take a couple of minutes during your session, and maybe even address in your proposal, if you can, the ethical implications of your topic. So for example, if you're working in social media, for example, when you're presenting on social media, you might have ethical implications on a policy, like for your institution, where you might not respond to criticism. Somebody might go on and bash your university on social media, and you might have a policy talking about how you would not respond, or how you respond tactfully so that you don't light the fire so that gets worse. Or you don't want to show favoritism to a vendor, for example. You might be working with a partner, and those types of things that might be ethical implications. You could run into some sort of discriminatory use, that kind of thing. So just think about the ethical implications of what your topic is. There may be some more or less depending on what your topic is, but consider that. Allow opportunities for interaction and Q&A. Just think about your own experiences when you go to a session. If you want to be included, you generally feel a lot more connected to the topic if you're able to contribute and feel engaged. So allow opportunities to do that. Identify clear takeaways, and again, Linda will talk a little bit more in depth about that. And also consider levels of your audience. And Linda's going to talk to you about our new way of kind of identifying levels for your sessions. But consider how your topic can be given out based on those levels, and how that information can be utilized. Because you might have folks that are brand new to the profession, or people who have been in for 30 years and could be doing your session in your place. So just think about those various topic areas, because those can be important for you. So I'm going to switch it over to Linda. So Linda, you've got the floor.
Okay. Can you bring up my slide, or do I need to do that?
It should be coming. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
There it goes. Okay. So Marcus has given you a good foundation here. Now we can dig into some of the nitty-gritty. So if any of you are in on the webinar today and you've already done proposals for us in the past, you're going to see a couple of things that are different this year besides the fact that PRESIS, excuse me, the online system is changed. But it used to be that we would ask you, what is the level of your audience? Is it someone who is a beginner, someone intermediate, or someone advanced? And pretty much that was wrapped around years of experience in the field of admissions. Now, as you know, we have made this shift now to GEM, as Marcus has been referring to it, Graduate Enrollment Management. And the reason that that has happened, it's really been kind of an organic thing within our organization and among our members, in that they are being expected, our members are being expected to do more. We're responsible for more things, and we're really beginning to look at the full student life cycle in more of our offices, hence the shift from being a national organization of admissions professionals. We see that our jobs have changed along the way. So we figured that this was a really good time for us to revamp how we are asking people to submit proposals as well. So instead of basing the level of your intended or your target audience on how many years they've been in the field, we're asking you to look at this through a different lens. And that is, would your proposal or your education sentence appeal to someone at the tactical level? Now, for anyone who has a background in education, you'll notice this sounds an awful lot like Bloom's taxonomy of learning, and it does. So at the tactical level, this is the knowledge and the understanding level. So for example, if you were going to submit a proposal on data analysis, the tactical piece of that would be the how-tos, how to set up spreadsheets, what kinds of data would you identify to track, and coming up with ideas of what you would want to do with that data. So that's kind of the tactical part of that. An operational or the development level would be you're thinking about how are you going to plan to do this? What are the tools that you're going to use? How often are you going to be running your, doing the reports? And kind of, developing and writing policies, enrollment policies, and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a higher level. And then finally, if you're really going to go after the strategic level and look for people to come to your presentation, because you're going to be dealing with a much deeper level of understanding, and that would be, all right, so you might be running reports, but you're going to share how are you using the data. Are you looking at your data just in slices? Or are you looking at it longitudinally? Are you looking at it to influence your program development, or programmatic decision-making, staffing, allocation of resources? That is more when you are analyzing and evaluating and making decisions. So that would be a much deeper level, but it doesn't matter how many years you've been in the business, so to speak, of graduate enrollment management, but rather, are you new to a particular topic? So you could be a director, an assistant director, a recruiter who's now being asked to work with data, and you need help with that. So a session that is delineated, whether it is the tactical, the operational, or the strategic, you will be able to know, is this something good for me to go to? I already know I'm running reports, but what am I doing with the reports? How am I analyzing them? So these are the types of things that we want you to keep in mind when you are writing your proposals, as well as when you are thinking about what or who your target audience would be. Okay? And so when you go into Presys, you will see, for those of you who have been in there before, you cannot use a previous login. You have to create a new one because the site has been completely reorganized. Some of it does remain the same, but it does have a different look and feel to it. So the things that you're going to be responsible for will be your personal info and your bio, and that would mean for you and any participants that you would have who would be co-presenting or panelists. We want to make sure that we have bios on everyone who will be involved, and I know that Marcus spoke about that a little bit earlier, the value of collaborating with others. What we have found also from past evaluations of conferences and our professional development institutes, that when you have a topic and you have people representing small schools, large schools, centralized versus decentralized schools, or admissions offices, it can draw in a bigger audience, and it really adds a depth and a breadth to the conversation as well, and to the questions, so that everybody can have a good learning experience when they're participating in your education session. We also want to know a little bit about your presentation experience. Have you presented at your open houses? Maybe you've had a career before you went into graduate enrollment management and you had some presentation experience there. If you've presented at any other conferences or workshops, we would like you to indicate that as well. And you'll see why when we get to the rubric section here today, we actually have a rubric that deals with just the presenter and his or her background and experiences. You're going to want, pardon me, when you write your bio, and again it's going to be a brief little paragraph, highlight your experience or your expertise in the area. Of course you're going to cite your title, your school, maybe some other kind of background that you have, but try to make it as pertinent as you can to the particular topic that you're going to be speaking about or running a panel or one of our other ed sessions about. You'll also have to indicate the session type, and Marcus talked with you a little bit about what those options are. I would say to you, if you are considering a panel discussion, please keep in mind that a panel discussion is a discussion. It is not just people coming up there and people on your panel. You say, okay, Marcus is going to talk with you for a few minutes about this topic, and then Linda will, and then this one will, and that one will. You really want to have a panel discussion that is centered by and grounded in essential pithy questions that a moderator would ask, and then have people on the panel respond. Should you choose to do it the other way, then you probably should choose the presentation type or the session type that would be called a rapid-fire session. And that way you would have people sharing information on a particular topic and then having a question and answer period that would go along with it. You are required to choose your approach, and that's just a drop-down menu. You're also required to draft an abstract, and we do give you a word limit on that, but figure out that it would be a pretty healthy paragraph, and keep in mind that this is what will go into the conference program that will be on the website, and it will also be given out to all of our conference attendees when they arrive in New Orleans next spring. So you want to make sure that it's inclusive as possible. You will have an opportunity, if your proposal is accepted, to go back into Presys and make any edits that you might need. For example, you might put in a proposal for a panel discussion, but at the time you only have 2 panelists and you wanted to add another one. You could do that, and you can also revamp your abstract just a little bit as well. You are required to identify learning objectives for some of the session types. We want these to be done according to the guidelines that we share with you on the website and when you're within Presys. It's really important for your attendees to know exactly what they're going to be learning about. So we give you examples of learning objectives, and we're going to talk about some of those in a moment. and also a list of action verbs that you would use for your learning objectives as well. For those of you who might be submitting a proposal for an education session that is a presentation, you would have to provide an outline as well. And we know that this is still a very early stage, but make that as detailed as you can in your proposal so that we get a real full picture of what your ideas are. There will be quite a few people that will be reviewing these proposals. About 15 of us work on this, so you do want to make sure that you're as clear as possible. If you are going to choose a panel discussion for your proposal, then you would have to add, instead of an outline, you would be including some typical questions that you would have for panelists. Marcus spoke a little bit to you earlier about collaboration. It's a great idea for you to do some outreach, and in a moment I will go over some specific ways for you to outreach to see if there are other people that you might want to partner with in preparing for an education session. We also ask you within PRESYS, would you be interested in collaborating? Now, for example, last year was, I think, the first or second year that we had this question, and so we had people who had the same topic, so we kind of got in touch with them and said, would you like to partner with someone? And that way we have, you know, let's say 2 or 3 people, and we can't have 2 or 3 on that particular topic of the sessions, but rather if we get people to work together, we are deepening the discussion and the information that would be available to our conference attendees, as well as giving more people an opportunity to be involved in conducting an education session. So that seemed to work well for us. And then also we ask you another question, would you consider presenting in a 2-hour session? Now generally our sessions are about 1 hour. The 2-hour session is more like a workshop where we would want this and you would want it to be more interactive, and it would be a 2-hour block. Generally last year what we did was we targeted the conference theme, which was change. The year before that was leadership. This year it's such a broad topic, we kind of want to see what we get, and then we would make that offer to you if you're interested and if we feel that we have a need once we look at all of the different topics that have been submitted as proposals. Okay? And so how might you do some outreach if you are looking to collaborate on a proposal with someone? We invite you to use the NAGAP fan page. NAGAP does have is out there on Twitter and also on LinkedIn. If there's other social media, if you are involved in one of NAGAP's chapters or special interest group, I would suggest that you reach out to colleagues through that. If you're on a listserv or another for a professional organization that has to do with the types of degrees and programs that are in your school, you might reach out that way as well. And I think that Marcus had mentioned there might be people within your university. So let's say that you are, let's go back to our data example that we used before for enrollment modeling and strategic planning. There might be someone from your enrollment, university enrollment services or from institutional research that you might want to invite to be part of this with you. We have had some people who have participated before in education sessions as presenters, and they've had a student with them or a graduate assistant. So you can kind of keep those things in mind as well. If you need to ask for recommendations, or if you want to make sure that it's known that you are looking for collaborators, you can let the education chair for the conference, that's Leslie Brzezina. She's from Regis University, and she's the education chair this year. And I also had one other little suggestion here, is that you might want to go through past issues of Perspectives magazine and see what people have presented on in the past. Every year, the issue of Perspectives that comes out right after the conference has summaries of different sessions in it, so you'd be able to identify people there. There might be colleagues who have written articles for Perspectives or who have been highlighted either on the NAGAP website or in Perspectives magazine, and feel free to reach out to them as well. Okay, next slide. And so speaking about learning objectives, now the former teacher in me obviously feels very comfortable in this realm, but for some people this is something new. And so what we would like is that we have a framework for the learning objectives so that when you as a conference goer are able to look through the different session descriptions and you can look at the learning objectives and say, oh wow, now I know exactly what's going to happen in this presentation or in this panel and what I'm going to learn. And so your learning objectives need to be actionable and measurable. They should not be so vague that you will understand the topic of data analysis, but rather that you would be able to describe that data analysis and create a data analysis tool for your institution. Notice that you get to a much deeper level when you're using higher level learning objectives. And this folds right into what Marcus mentioned earlier. We use the word takeaways a lot. And that's a very common way, a very baseline way for us to describe what it is that your attendees are going to be able to walk out the door with. Something they can go back to their jobs on the Monday after the conference, and they will have something concrete that they can do. So you can, for the beginning stages of this process, for the proposal stage, you can fold that into your learning objectives. If your proposal is accepted, Marcus and I do another webinar on how to put your how to put your presentation together and to really take a look at what those takeaways are going to be so that people have a lot of clarity about how they can use what they have learned. Okay? Next slide, Marcus. Okay, and so here are some examples of some learning objectives. And so if you just kind of briefly take a look at what some of these are, you can see that the level of the verb that begins each of these is very, very actionable, and it's also very measurable as well when we're using words like engage and analyze. Increase engagement by creating student groups. Determine content and strategy for a new student web page. That's different from create a new student web page. Okay, so you kind of deepen the expectation that someone would have from the new learning and how they can use that. Develop strategies to address student retention. So I think that you can see the format that we're looking for is that you would start each of the learning objectives with an action verb in the present tense. Okay, next slide. And how do we evaluate your proposal? First of all, please know that the Education Committee worked on rubrics within the last 2 years. We started using them last year, and we found them to be very helpful. And so there will be a rubric for each of the different types of education sessions, be it a presentation, a rapid fire session, a panel discussion, or a special interest forum. The rubrics are in Precis, so when you go in there, I strongly suggest that you let the rubric be your guide when you are writing your proposal. And that way you have that right out next to you and you know what it is that you're going to be evaluated on so that when you're doing your writing, you can gear your abstract, your outline, your learning objectives to the rubric, much the same way that teachers do with students and professors do with our graduate students. We are going to be looking at the experience of the submitters, whether they're presenters or panelists or moderators. Please know that any level of experience that you have, even if you're just a beginner, we've had in the field, we've had some great presentations by people. People who have done reflections on their first year in graduate enrollment management, what they learned, what are some of the pitfalls. That can be very helpful to other people who are new to the profession as well. Please Keep in mind that the rubrics are all on a 1 to 5 point scale, and these are the different things that we look at. We look at the currency, importance, and appropriateness of the topic. The purpose outcomes, those would be your learning objectives. What does it say in your abstract and in your outline? Is your topic well defined, and is your abstract well written? And then what are the qualifications of the presenter as well? And so the next slides that we're going to take a look at, you're actually going to see what the rubrics look like. And so here's the timeline for the proposals and the evaluation. So as you can see, that September 22nd deadline for the submission. And then during the months of October and November, that's when we will be looking at the looking to evaluate the proposals. With a December notification to submitters, you all know that late January, early February, we will launch registration. So people will be choosing at that time the education sessions that they want to attend. And so the people who will be evaluating, the conference chair this year is Tisha Johnson from Chicago School of Optometry. The conference chair-elect is Renanda Wood. She's from Georgia in the School of Social Work. And then the conference education chair, as I mentioned earlier, is Leslie Brazina from Regis in Denver, Colorado. I am the education chair, and then the education committee has about 10 to 12 members. So all of us are going to be evaluating those proposals using the rubrics. And now to take a look at the rubric. This is a rubric for your topic. And as I mentioned earlier, we are looking at the currency, importance, and appropriateness of the topic. And so you're rated on a 1 to 5 scale. This is what a number 5 rating would look like. And please notice the key words as you're glancing at that section of the rubric there for the 5 rating. So the key words would be, is your topic relevant? Is it cutting edge? Will it have a significant impact? Does it exemplify best practices? Is it based on data analysis or evidence-based research? And that evidence-based research, that could be your own research of how something is working in your particular shop. It doesn't necessarily have to be that it is from some published work. Okay, so please do keep that in mind. And how well would this help people in the world of GEM? Okay, so the next rubric is on purpose outcomes. And so once again, having to do with your abstract as well as with your learning objectives. And so keywords that you'll see in this description here will be, does it support the conference topic? Are key takeaways going to be identified through your learning objectives? Okay. Can a participant envision, can they see themselves learning something and finding your presentation or your panel discussion meaningful so that they can have things that they can take home and get started on? And does it provide enough examples of concrete next steps and follow-up activities or actions that your session participants will walk away with? And then the construction, the writing for your title. You want your title to be descriptive and engaging and enticing so that people want to attend. But the real meat and potatoes, that's being spoken by a vegan, I might add, so that probably sounds kind of silly. But the real substance, shall we say, be it kale or meat and potatoes, would be in that abstract as well as the learning objectives. So looking in this description here for a 5 rating, keywords are inviting, clear, descriptive, who's the intended audience, and then what do the goals look like, okay? And are the goals aligned to, so that they will be appealing to session participants? And then finally, the qualifications of the presenter or presenters or panelists, all right? Once again, keywords in a 5 rating. would be knowledgeable. The expertise, be it the experience or the educational background of the presenter, previous presentation experience that the presenter might have, or previous experience in a particular topic. So, for example, let's say someone wants to present on, leading in a new GEM model, going from being a leader of an admissions office to be a leader in graduate enrollment management, knowing that this is going to now include the full life cycle. So let's say that someone has administrative experience from another job. That might be something that you would include in your bio, so that the evaluators of your proposal know that you have this other kind of leadership experience. And again, that is just one example of how you might use that. Okay, if your proposal is accepted, you will get a template for creating your PowerPoint if you're going to do a presentation, and then Marcus and I will be having another webinar on how to help you along in that process. Okay, and I'm going to turn this back over to Marcus to finish up for us.
All right, great. So just a few things moving forward. We talked about takeaways. Linda certainly addressed that for you. So these are just some examples of takeaways. And anybody who's been to my sessions before, and I think Linda appreciates this piece of my sessions, is that I give homework. I guess I come from a teaching family, so I guess that makes sense. So I try to give a series of assignments throughout it. And the idea is that people can take something away and do it in their office within a reasonable amount of time. So these are just some examples. Review your Google Analytics and make changes in your website that's going to help your recruitment. Assess your styles and weaknesses by taking a leadership assessment test that speaks to those personal skills rather than just the professional development pieces. Develop a survey for prospects and admitted students or alumni. Create task forces. These are all just general examples. You'll see that I noted this year we had a new activity that was part of the conference, and unfortunately Twitter became our enemy in actually making it work after the conference. But we utilized throughout the conference the hashtag NAGAPLearns on Twitter, and if you use that hashtag, it allows us to, we're basically taking all the takeaways that we get from the various sessions, and it allows you to view takeaways from other sessions that you aren't able to make it to. So as you go to, whether it be the winter PDI coming up in Puerto Rico, or if you're going to a webinar, or if you go to the annual conference, use that hashtag NAGAPLearns on Twitter, and that'll help us connect all these various takeaways. So when you're going to the conference, there might be 7 or 8 sessions at a given time slot. You're only able to go to one, but you might be able to see takeaways from all 8 different sessions. And our goal that we'll be better at this year is to actually have a takeaway that I'll put together like some sort of document that I'll email out to conference attendees that would have all of the various takeaways for each kind of major category that we have for the conference, so that you're getting takeaways from everything, not just the few sessions you were able to attend during the conference. So try to use that NAGAPLearns, and we hope that that'll help us connect a lot of takeaways from the sessions. So why should you consider submitting a proposal? Linda and I have both presented multiple times at NAGAP. I mean, I think I speak for both of us and the plethora of other speakers that are, it's personally rewarding, for one. You're able to contribute back to the profession, and there's a lot of expertise that you all have that I don't have, and vice versa, that we can share together. And same with Linda and all of our other various presenters, that we're able to really grow from each other. And as you know, with graduate enrollment management, there aren't a lot of resources beyond what we offer here at NAGAP. So take those opportunities to share resources and impart knowledge that we haven't otherwise heard before. You can grow as a professional. For those of you who haven't presented before, it might be an opportunity for you to enhance your presentation skills, grow your resume a little bit. We talk about professional development and personal development, being able to add to your resume, make you more marketable. You can include these things in your social media profiles, your LinkedIn profiles, your resume, as I mentioned. You can highlight your school. Many of your schools like the added visibility. And in many cases, you might be able to talk to your PR office and promote that you're presenting on a certain topic at a national conference and representing your institution. So that's a PR opportunity for them as well. and leverage that. So if you're having trouble getting funding, maybe you aren't able to come to the conference, they aren't able to sponsor you, but you're able to present now. If you're saying you're presenting, you might have a better chance of getting your school to sponsor you to go. So if your proposal is accepted, certainly want to add it to your resume. Add it to your performance evaluation. It might be able to help you with any kind of performance appraisal process that you have on your campus. And get coverage by your media, as I mentioned, with your PR. That could really be helpful, even just on your social media. But remember that we work in education, so you want to share valuable information, theories, data, anything that you can back that information up, and knowledge. Provide opportunities to process that information, engage your audience, and then give that sort of homework or takeaway or something for implementation. Because I can tell you from personal experience, I know we've all had it, we've gone to those sessions where it's just been a biography of the person in front of you and the school that they work for. And that's great, and especially if we work at a similar institution, that's helpful information to see how they may have weathered the storm with a particular challenge. But we want to be able to take something that's actionable. You want something that's got data behind it that says, this is how things are done, this is how it worked out, this was the evaluation we got, these are the responses we heard from students, and then be able to take that information and make it actionable and bring back to our own campuses. So some kind of final tips. Consider possible topics based on your strengths and expertise. We talked about that. Think about the levels of your audience and think of those, not so much levels, but those three, the tactical pieces, the types of information that you're imparting and how it'll be utilized on your campus. Is it going to be strategic or is it going to be something hands-on? Depending on what those functions are. And it doesn't have to be a function that you perform, per se. So you may be trying to, like for example, I do a lot of sessions on social media, but I've done them for the tactical folks, but I've also done them for the strategic folks because for me, I'm doing the tactical, but I'm also doing the strategic on my campus. But there might be a VP on another campus or a director on another campus that all they want to do is be able to understand what's going on in social media and how they can implement it, but they want to tell their staff to be the ones that are doing the implementation. You need to be able to think about how you're going to take that knowledge and give it to the people that need it most and use it in the way that you feel is most successful. So you may be the implementer, but don't shy away from looking at some of the others. Look at your proposals in a Word document, get input from colleagues. Having multiple eyes on it, I mean, it just goes without saying. Have people take a look at it, see if it's valuable. Remember that the abstract itself that you're putting in your proposal, and you'll have an opportunity to tweak that later on in the process if you have to. But that's what's going to appear in the conference program. So think about how you can market your own session by writing a really good abstract. So something that's outside the box, that's really attention-grabbing, that'll help you get people to come to your session if it's accepted. And cite your experience in your bio that relates to your topic. And Linda talked about it a little bit of that earlier on. So with that said, I think we've covered, pretty much the gamut, but we're happy to answer any questions that you might have here. And I'm going to unmute Linda because her phone was making a little bit of noise. But we will have this video available online, and we'll also email out the PowerPoint for everybody that came to the session today. And then once it's on YouTube, we'll also share that link as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them now. And Linda, I don't know if there's anything further you want to add.
No, I kind of think we've covered everything, but I did see that we had 2 questions that came in earlier that we answered. But I'm just wondering if anybody else had any questions. Okay, we have a question here. What's the best session you've been to at NAGAP, and why was it memorable? I would
on the spot.
Have to think about that one. One comes to mind right away. I went to one on student ambassadors, and I came back and started a student ambassador program here. I've had several iterations of it, and hopefully I have one that I think is going to be real helpful for next year. They really kind of depend on, what group of students you have at any particular time and how you can compensate them. But it was something that I was able to put into, real immediate action. I would also say that there have been some special interest forums that I found very good as well. So you might consider that. So let's say that you're interested in a particular topic, but you don't feel that you have enough knowledge to maybe be the one who's going to present on it, but, excuse me, you can bring together enough people to kind of give a good introduction and then have people go into these table groups and discuss among themselves and then you would moderate the full group discussion at the end. So those can be real helpful. I have really enjoyed them.
I think I'll add that there are at least a couple sessions that come to mind, and the reason they come to mind, I'll start with the why was it memorable piece, is that they were fun and they were engaging. So one of which was actually a session that I know Larry Schwartz, and I believe, Linda, you may have been involved with, was this leadership session. It was, I think, 2 years ago when they had the giant, he brought in that pole that everybody had to do a leadership exercise with.
That was mine with him, yeah, and I was so nervous about that pole thing. I thought, how is this going to work? But it did, and it had people up and out of their seats and moving around the room, so it did work well.
Yeah, it was, I mean, there was like 60-some-odd people, and everybody was smiling and having a good time, and we learned so much about each other and teamwork and things, so that was really helpful. And from a more traditional standpoint, some of the vendor presentations, and my favorite every year is done by Tony Frege at Direct Development, and he does a great session on kind of direct marketing and integrated marketing and pearls and all that kind of stuff. And so he's always worth going to see, but everybody has a good time in there, and it's engaging, and people talk, and there's a lot of actionable takeaways and good data that's presented. So anything that's engaging, that's fun, that you're learning a lot, all of those elements really make for a really successful presentation.
Mm-hmm. I see that we have another question here. I don't know if the person wants us to talk about it out loud, but it's a question about professional development, and would it be a good place to start by surveying your own staff? You can kind of, if your staff is agreeable to you doing something with them, and then wouldn't it be great if one or two, if you could bring one or two people with you. But for example, I just did something this summer with my staff where we did a retreat for the first time. We didn't go anywhere. I got a room here in the university for 2 days, but I had one of our leadership and human resource professors come in, and we all took the MBTI, and there are other tools that you could use as well. I know with the JGAP group, when Leslie Brazina was our president, during one of our executive board retreats in summer and our planning sessions, we all did the leadership strengths. And so when you have something like that as a jumping off point and, kind of giving some kind of a survey, and then it's kind of like, what are you going to do with it? When you're asking about people's successes and their ability to progress or advance in their work environment, is it just about a particular school, or would it be if you're surveying others as well? NAGAP might already have some data on that with some of the 360 survey that the research committee did. And then I think, is it Marcus, every year or every other year we do a membership survey as well. So there could be some data that's already there that you might be able to tap and then put something together on with some suggestions for other staff as they're moving forward. Because once again, that important piece is going to be the takeaways.
And I see there was a follow-up on this question. One thing I was going to bring up related to that is, we have IO faculty on our campus, so we've utilized them in a similar fashion to what Linda just mentioned. But one of the very successful tools out there is the 360 assessment, which I know Larry, we'd be happy to connect you with Larry Schwartz. He knows a lot about, and he's done them for a number of NAGAP folks. And the 360 would give you an opportunity to survey staff outside of your office, if I'm understanding your question correctly, on how your staff is doing on an internal perspective, so how your staff is serving your internal constituents, if I'm understanding correctly. So a 360 could allow you to kind of survey those key university administrators that might be relying on your office, or even faculty that are relying on your office, and get kind of an understanding from you as an administrator in aggregate what your staff is able to do for them, and then be able to identify those key areas that they might need professional development. Because it sounds like you want to hear from the outside what X person is doing well and what they aren't doing well. And those things that aren't doing well, instead of them being like a punishment type thing, it's a let me help coach you to get better in these areas. So maybe an opportunity is to go to a NAGAP conference and do this session, or go and get communication training at a workshop somewhere or something like that. So a 360 might be really helpful in that regard.
Right. The other thing, too, is that sometimes when we're surveying people, people don't know what they don't know. And so if they haven't been exposed to anything within their job world, how can they really identify fully what they might need more of? So sometimes it's about maybe looking at some different models of the way that professional development is done also. So if you would like to speak further about that, you can get in touch with me or get in touch with Leslie, and we can kind of help you to flesh this out just a little bit more. Other questions?
It looks like we're pretty quiet now. So what we'll do, let me bounce to, I think on the next slide that we put our contact. Yes, I should have put this up before. So if any of you want to reach out to us, that's contact information for me and for Linda, so you can reach out to us anytime. We're happy to help with any further questions that might have arisen from here or anything else we can help with regarding the conference. So if there aren't any further questions, I guess that's it for us. So thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your time, and we hope that you'll be putting in a great proposal. So it looks like there is a question here. Looks like it's incomplete, though. So we'll wait 1 second to see if it's completed here. It's related to the domains underrepresented in last year's conference. So the question is there any category or domain that was underrepresented in last year's conference?
Well, some of them are different this year. We've tried to change the where we really need some help is on the whole in the financing realm, and then I would say also student services, because that is not something that traditionally admissions people were doing. So something in that realm, and then I would say probably also the alumni relations and engagement. We could use some help with that as well.
All right, so it looks like we've gotten through all the questions now. So again, thank you so much for your interest and for coming to the session today. You see there's Leslie's contact information on the screen now as well. Leslie's our education chair within the conference committee, so she can help you with anything with your proposal and things. So reach out to any one of us. And we look forward to seeing you not only presenting, but also at the conference in New Orleans in April. So we're looking forward to it. Have a great afternoon.
Okay, bye everybody. Thank you.